Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Tonight we have Mike Ford, we have Georgia, and myself, Ryan Dixon. So tonight we're going to be we're going to kind of speed run through the Team Ruck Match. We recorded this already once. We were trying out kind of a new way to record it since we lost Skype, and it didn't record any of Mike. It recorded my video and audio, and it recorded Mike's video and no audio. So it was me talking to myself in silence. So as always, if you enjoy what we're doing here, we ask you to please like and share, subscribe to this. That helps us get up higher in the algorithm so that more people can find us, and we're able to help spread the word of these matches to more people. So going into that, kind of going quick, Mike, why don't you give us a breakdown of the Team Ruck Match, kind of the flavor of it and what it's about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Whiskey Hotel Team Ruck Match Eastern Ohio, over by the West Virginia border, just outside of the Ohio River Valley, and it's pretty awesome. Lots of hills and natural terrain to shoot in, and it creates a very interesting match environment, which is really good for the flavor. It's team based with ruck legs that you need to do. They're out and backs, and there's normally some of them that have some challenges mixed in, and that allows you to get points for physical stuff that you're doing. And then there's also shooting stages. The shooting stages can vary in the outcome of the match. It's a lot of fun.
My,
We've been doing them for a few years now, and we highly recommend that you get to them. So,
you are
so I would
cut.
say we can probably jump into the match.
Okay, yeah, you were cutting out a little bit there. I don't know. Hopefully the internet connection gets better here. So in case it didn't record what Mike said, I'm not sure how this is going to work. This is in Marietta, Ohio. There is 6 stages. There are 4 ruck events, 4 ruck legs in this, and rifle only. The shooting is what I'd call very, very practical. Everything from close-up movers to a little bit longer range. I think the furthest shot was around 500 yards this year, 550, something like that. So we are going to head on into it. We're going to start with the stages, and then we are going to go straight from the stages into the rucks. So, Mike, do you want to try to talk about Mad Dash?
So Mad Dash is one of my favorite stages that I've ever done consistently at a match, and it starts out at roughly 300 yards. You're going to have the gear that's required for the start. This time they require your full like web gear, load gear, your ruck, rifle, and so everyone lines up about 50 yards off of the starting points where you're shooting, and they've got them numbered. And then downrange, each team has a set of numbered targets that corresponds to their position. And these are full-size silhouette paper targets with scoring zones and would be IDPA. So at the beep, the shooters have so many seconds to run to the first position and engage those targets with 5 rounds, reload 5 rounds. So how that worked this time was that first position, you were going to drop your ruck and shoot off of your ruck. You're using your ruck as your front support. So we took off running, and we ended up on the far right side of the target array. So we actually passed some shooters since the movement was from the right to the left to get started, and past those shooters, got into our position, and did a pretty good job of getting our 5 off. So along with this, because of the distances involved, you also have to remember what is your hold, and you have to get those rounds off. If you don't get those rounds off in the allotted time, you don't get to fire them. You don't get those points. The interesting thing is the way that it's scored with 1 point for your A and then your C would be half point, and then quarter point for your D, your outer. You are playing a game of I want as many rounds on paper as possible, but they got to count, and it's better to have all A's than to catch yourself a quarter. So if you don't get all your rounds off, but you get all A's, you could end up in a really good position. But your heart's hammering. You've got so many seconds to get this done. So it's a speed accuracy balance.
Yep.
And so,
50 seconds to run, get in position, load, 5, reload 5. So 50 seconds sounds like an eternity when you're trying to shoot, but I can assure you that it is definitely not. And if you do it right, you're probably taking your last shot right at that 50 seconds, and hopefully you're getting, 10 A's at that. So I think we failed to mention this being a team ruck match. It's team, so 2-person team. And then your ruck, you have a standard loadout, so 5 magazines and a ruck of 25 pounds of non-consumable. So you still have to have ammo on top of that. You still have to have a quart of water on you, a quart of water in your pack, and those don't count towards that. So wanted to chime that in there, Mike, if you want to go on to the next, because that first position we actually shot, you could shoot off the ruck if you wanted. So you could run over there. You started with your ruck, 50 yards, toss that ruck down if you want, which we did because it makes a lot of sense, and shoot. That's position. So you want to go talk about the next part, Mike?
yeah, so that second shooting position, what they have you do is once everyone has fired their last shot, you show the ROs, they're walking the firing line, that your rifle is cleared and there's no live ammo left in it. And then they'll tell you what your starting position is. And then once everyone is ready along the line, they'll go ahead and beep you and get that sprint to the next position going. This next position varies match by match. In this case, they had some railroad ties. They were probably about 8 or 10 inches off the ground, and then they had a board set up where you had a horizontal slot to shoot through. And the spacing on that horizontal slot was really tricky because, like for me, running a standard height 154 mount, when I slid my rifle on with the handguard touching, I could barely see the target I was getting ready to shoot, and the top half of my field of view was completely blocked by that top board. So depending on what accessories you had, like if you had a bipod, vertical grip, hand stop, you may or may not be able to actually go through that slot in a vertical orientation. You might be canting your rifle at a 45 or a true horizontal offset to fit it in that slot to shoot. So that's a good skill to know. Not very many people shoot an offset like that, especially at that distance. So a lot of people had some good learning opportunities to see where their rounds were going to pattern. And so you also had another 5 reload 5 from this position as well. I know that I was able to kind of do a kneeling and just kind of collapse in on myself and shoulder the rifle and shoot through it in a vertical orientation. I know Ryan went ahead and did kind of a prone and then laid the gun in uh, horizontal.
Yeah,
So
not
that
not
was.
not completely horizontal, but more
Mhm.
45-ish.
Yep. So Ryan, you probably want to tell the folks what happened in for the learning in this position.
Yep. I had a over insertion of the magazine that led to a double feed. So I was able to clear that, put the magazine in, started shooting, realized I grabbed the wrong magazine because this was supposed to be 5 reload 5. So shot 5 rounds and thought there shouldn't be 5 rounds in there because I had to strip 2 of them out. Switched to my other mag, which means I didn't quite get all my shots off. Um, so kind of stuffed that one mag as full as I could with the ones that had dropped on the ground, and end up having 8 for the last position instead of having a 10 round mag. It was a Lancer mag. I use mostly Magpool. I do use some Lancers. I had the Lancers for this because you had to be downloaded. It was easier to see the ammo in it, but that is the first Lancer I've ever had over inserted. It may not be a problem on all guns, may just be this one, but it was definitely a problem. So at least for that gun, the Lancer mags are retired from match use, and I'm going to start using some other probably P mags or pick up some more T mags and use those. So definitely lesson learned. I mean, I cleared it fairly quick. I still got quite a few shots off, from both magazines, but you're definitely behind the curve if you got a 5 to 10 second malfunction to clear before you get to start shooting. So lesson learned there for me. For other people, that's something that is worth practicing, or just be aware of it. So Mike, why don't you take the last position?
So what they did was once everyone was cleared out again, they had everyone step over the that little barricade that we were behind, just for a safety standpoint. And then the final position was a standing 10 rounds. And this is still, you're 150 yards away from your target. Um, it's not exactly an easy, just offhand with your heart pounding and to try to snag all A zones. Uh, it's still, I think Ryan and I ended up with one of our better scores from this event. I think we were pretty happy with that. I think we both credit that to we went and took some of the Whiskey Hotel classes this year. We did DMR 1 together, and then I had opportunity to go to DMR 2 and went ahead and jumped on it in preparation for Legion this year. And it was a really good learning opportunity, and those classes carry really, really well into practical marksmanship, like what we do at running gun matches and some of these other competitive things that we do. So you always critique things about, man, wouldn't have had a malfunction, or maybe I should have, slowed down, another 5 seconds longer in my string. But you're trying to shoot a comfortable cadence and do it in such a way that you're not going to get pinched by the clock too. So we definitely walked away with some lessons, but we weren't too terribly disappointed in our overall performance on that stage. Just before we leave, something for folks to consider. And I've actually got a little show and tell right here because I'm in my gun room, reloading room.
Yeah,
Bear with me as I grab
Yeah,
some demo items here.
why he's getting
So
that. Yeah, I think we got 30 some odd points. So if you think about it, it was a maximum of what it would have been 60, 10, 10.
we did, I think it was 30 and three quarter, if I recall.
Yeah, so I mean that wasn't horrible. I think the high score on that was like 39 or something like that. So if my position would have gone differently, we would have been way closer to that. So you can go on with your show and tell, Mike.
So here's a Lancer mag for folks who aren't familiar with them. You can see it doesn't have an over insertion tab. Generally, these are still good magazines. There's the Lancer versus Magpul debate. I've personally never had an issue with them, um, but I'm not really running them these days. Now, it's very similar to the old M2 Magpul body design that you don't have those over insertion stops as well. The nice things with like the Magpul, the Lancers, your standard metal body mags, is they're easy to get in and out of web gear. And probably the thing that drove me nuts the most about the M3 series by Magpul is they function flawlessly for me, but the over insertion stop is really wide and flat. And so what you run into is that snags going in and out of web gear. Something fierce. Drives me crazy. And so our local FFL, CB Guns, he was one of the first in our area to get the new T mags and hooked me up with enough to do a running gun loadout. So big shout out to CB Guns on that. So here's a T mag. So you get the translucent magazine body, so you can see right away what your round count is, and like if you're shuffling from like two partial mags, like hey, I'm not taking 20 and putting it in a 10 round. I know which one's the 10 rounder to put into the 20. But then you also end up with it has the over insertion stop, but the corners have a bigger chamfer on them, and it seems like it's a lot easier to get in and out of web gear. So just little ADHD squirrel moment for you guys. But for those looking for the little advantage and being able to stuff mags in their web gear and know where their round counts at, T mags are pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I know people are like going, well, you don't need to see how many rounds are in there, or they've got windowed mags. Both are correct. Like I have some windowed mags. A lot of times I don't really care. I just stuff them full and I know that they're full and I use them. Um, in this case, you had to start off with four mags with 5 rounds and one with 10. So the idea was I could quickly visually see the difference. Clearly that still didn't work. I was still stupid and grabbed the wrong one, but that's you can't see them once they're in web gear. So lesson learned there. And yeah, those T mags, I got one of them. I need to pick up some more of them. So moving on. Around the clock is the second stage. We're just gonna go. This isn't the order we shot them in. The way the match works is everyone does mad dash at the same time, like in waves. And then after that, you go back to like their command post, command center, and they just tell you where to go from there. So you could do a ruck, you could do a stage. It just kind of depends. So, but the second stage on the stage list here is around the clock. And this tends to be one of our favorites because what happens is you have some kind of task or physical action that you have to do to earn your ability to shoot. So in this case, you started with your guns, muzzles against a barricade, and when they yelled go, you had 6 minutes to. First thing you did is you ran. Each teammate grabbed a handle on a sandbag. You ran it back to like an SUV, like a Ford Escape or something. You had to lift that bag onto the roof. Then another one sitting there that you grabbed, you lifted onto the roof. Took your hands off, so it had to be up there. So hands off, grab it, bring it down, grab the other one, bring it down, hands off, or hands off so they can see it's actually on the ground. Then you pick it up, run it back to the start box, and then you can go behind the barricade and shoot. They had 3 targets, probably starting at around 100, going out to about 300. We didn't laze them. That's just they're not super small targets. So that's basically the holds that I used was around 100, 200, and 300. And it didn't matter who shot it, but you had to shoot them in order with 2 hits. So 2-2-2 and then 2-2-2 again. So 6 hits per iteration. Once you got that last hit, you would go and grab the sandbag again, take it back, do the whole thing over again, come back up, and this time you had to switch to your left shoulder. And you just went through that as many times as you could while before the time limit was up. Every hit on steel was a point. So I think we tied for second place on this one. We had like 36 points, and I think the team that ended up winning the match that beat us on that one was at 37. I think they got one more iteration of that. So, Mike, I know you talked about last time some of the strategies we used for being successful on that. You want to talk about those again?
Yeah, so this was a big one where communication was a big one because you're lifting, carrying, running in tandem. So I kind of called out like a cadence of what we were doing, and we were kind of specific about where each person was going to be when they picked up and carried it to the vehicle. And so our efficiency and movement was really good, probably one of the better ones that we saw. Another thing that we did is we were going through and thinking about round counts. At this match, we were really good about when we were getting down to, probably your last 5-ish rounds, when you're going to leave a position and come back, instead of bringing the gun up, shooting, going, do an emergency reload when you could be engaging targets, just go ahead and swap that mag out while you are coming into position and getting the gun back into action. So we didn't have any emergency reloads on the clock, which I'd say definitely helps your stage time. A couple little learning things was dealing with the left side of the barricade. You definitely need to practice that long range weak side eye, so you're comfortable in finding where your head belongs for the eye box. Something that we do close hand weak side, or sorry, close weak side at like 50 yards, but it's kind of hard to simulate that. That was kind of new for us. And then one thing was the way that the barricades were set up, where it came to a 90. So let's say I'm bracing my rifle over here on the side of it. The one side on the right side for me was just it seemed like the end of plywood, which worked pretty well. Um, I was able to brace. But then when I went to my weak side, there was like a 2x4 running. And so since it wasn't perfectly perpendicular, the flat wall wasn't perfectly perpendicular to the target array, what ended up happening with running a short rifle was my can ended up hitting that board a little bit. And I noticed after a few rounds of not getting impact, I was like, oh, yep. If my can's on there, I'm getting deflection in my barrel. That's going to matter shooting 100 to 300 yards. And so then I kind of had to loosen up and make sure I was applying a lot gentler pressure. So weak side, not braced as hard. Um, was the accuracy terrible? No, I was actually kind of impressed. I thought Ryan and I did really well. Do we want to do better? Yes, absolutely. We love these type stages. It's a great test of your ability to communicate and work effectively as a team under pressure, as well as shoot under pressure. And we tend to excel at these. These are some of our favorite.
Yep, 100%. And the more you do it, the more gassed you get. So you're coming back and you're pretty winded. So this is one of those situations where if you have good cardio and you have good rifle fundamentals, you're going to fall apart less than people who maybe are lacking in one or the other. So very fun stage, as always. I mean, we always enjoy those. So, and we tend to do pretty well because of that, because we have fairly good rifle fundamentals, and we do enough running, we do enough, kind of stuff in the gym that when we start to get winded, we don't quite break down maybe as much as some other people. It's never as good as when you are fresh. I mean, if I can just sit there at a bench, at resting heart rate, I'm definitely going to shoot better than at 160, but still. So moving on, the next one is called the Outpost. This was kind of a wild one. Mike, you want to run through this one? This was the one with all the stage guns.
Yeah, the Outpost had a lot going on there. So they required you to cough up, I believe it was a 15 round magazine for each shooter. And then you're also going to be working stage guns as well as your own. So the layout was they had like a bunker, a wooden barricade set up with walls and there's ports and stuff. And then there was a mortar tube behind you just up the hill, probably about 30 feet away. And so you were kind of buying your rounds. Both people had to touch the mortar in the process of firing it, and so you were actually in the mortar to buy your ability to engage targets. So the first gun was at kind of a Mark 12-ish, and it was dialed for the 400-yard target, and through a port. They had, I believe it was the running gun tactics uh, little support bag underneath of it. So it was very, very steady setup. Yep, Ryan's got his demo right there. We love ours, and they're a good friend of the show. And they're also very popular these days for a good reason. They're on a lot of podiums. So that being said, it was the ability to kneel behind the gun and really lock in. It was very solid. And they're running, I think it was a like a Credo 2 to 10 or something. Excuse me, sneeze, maybe a little powder dust here. Um, so I was the first one on there. There was 5 rounds in the gun, and shooting 400 yards on a full size torso target, easy. I go into a kneeling, support my right elbow on my right knee. And there was no movement. Center of the crosshairs on, and magnification was zoomed in a little more than I would probably normally shoot myself because it was just the whole daggone target. but you know, oh, it's hard to miss. So just press the trigger to the rear, no impact. Press the trigger to the rear, no impact. And I mean that I just took DMR2 shooting over this range, very similar rifle, and so it definitely stumped me. And so uh, went held high, half target high, no impact. Half target low, no impact. Dead center again, no impact. That was our 5 rounds. Unfortunately, Ryan didn't get to use it. Um, it baffled me. Other shooters apparently had some issues throughout the day, but other shooters were able to connect in between. So the MD and ROs don't think that the gun lost zero. I pulled that into stray lock in my 18-inch Mark 12-ish. If there was a 5 mile per hour breeze, would have just shifted the round off the side. And with me being zoomed in on the target, I didn't notice any breeze. I didn't try to hold for any breeze. I just didn't feel comfortable enough with a gun that, I would just, one shot, one shot, one shot around. I fired, a couple dead center. Just, I didn't see the reticle come off the target. But at the same time, just because you fire one round doesn't mean, maybe that one was a slow one or something. So, uh, the best guess was that range probably was starting to see some intermittent wind at that time.
Yeah,
I guess Ryan can roast me or defend me on that, but I unfortunately cost us the opportunity for some points there.
yeah. No, the thing about that range and what we're doing is there's a big flat field that goes out about 300 yards, but from there it just starts climbing up a hillside, kind of big cut or swale in the hillside. So if you've ever shot in situations like that, even in a flat field, what the wind's doing near you is not necessarily what it's doing 400 yards away. But the other thing is when you have terrain like that and trees and open areas, wind can, you can get a cross breeze, wind can suck down from other areas. So it's sometimes, I mean, I've shot in kind of areas like that. Sometimes it gets a little, and it's usually consistent. So if you shoot that range, you kind of know what it does. But sometimes wind can just be squirrely and you don't know. Now, I'll give the recommendation if you see any wind at all when you're shooting, especially a 5.56 at like 3, 4, 500 yards, even a little bit of indication down there, let's say it's going left to right, your best bet is to hold kind of on the left side of the target. You don't want to necessarily hold off if you're just guessing, but if you see any wind at all going left to right, hold a little to the left because at worst, if it completely dies down, you'll just hit the left end of the edge of the target. If it picks up though, it'll push it a little bit more right. You'll hit center or you may hit the right edge or you could still miss off the right and know that you need to hold more. But that's kind of a general like I'd say for 5.56, if you see any wind at all with how light the bullets are, it's probably worth kind of holding into the wind at least a little bit. Mike didn't see it, so we had no way to do that here, but that's probably I agree. That's a good chance that's what the case was. So, Mike, you can go on from there.
Yeah, and that's kind of a reasonable thing to say. A lot of times, you can be over magnified. If you're over magnified, sometimes you won't pick up details with wind. And being down in the bunker, I definitely wasn't feeling wind sitting down in an L-shaped wooden structure. So moving to, we did our mortar drop, got to the next gun. The next gun was, I believe, the kind of IAR setup that they were running, and that was pretty cool. I not really put rounds through an IAR setup before, and those targets were about 200 yards away. They had like a fixed, maybe 3x prism on it, and so you're just working short bursts. So I got my impacts on that. Ryan got his impacts.
Yep, and
Um,
that had a forced reset trigger. So, they had it like set on, I guess like a super safety you'd call it. So that's
yeah,
what that was, which was really fun. I'd never shot one before.
yeah, that was a good time. So then, the final stage gun that we got to use was a 240. And Ryan and I, we like our full auto stage guns when we get a chance to shoot them. And they had a simulated truck at about probably 175, 200 yards with a plate that represented the driver's area. And just because of the way the reticle was, they're like, hold at the ground essentially by the target, and your walk your rounds right on the plate. And the original plan, Ryan was going to shoot it last. I ended up shooting it last because of the Mark 12 going sideways. And Ryan got his burst right on. I got my burst right on. And then, we moved right to the next thing. Should have dumped it. But,
Those
I
those
hadn't
things,
planned to dump it because I wasn't going to be the last guy on it when we built our stage plan.
yeah, those things are
So,
so controllable for a 30 caliber belt fed machine gun. I mean, this is 2 times in 2 years that we've shot one, and those things are just so controllable. It's kind of incredible.
yep, we definitely enjoy it. So, of course, we do our grenade drop. We get our next buy, and so we also ended up with a grenade toss that we had to do with some hollowed out dummy grenades. And I think at this point I've only thrown maybe like 4 grenade simulators. Can't say that I'm real experienced with it. Probably need to get some. Not sure if I should practice those in the backyard or not. But yeah.
The
So
local
Ryan,
park, the local park is definitely the place to practice
yeah.
grenade
So
tosses.
Ryan made a nice toss, and it looked like it was just coming up short. And since I was standing right next to him, I saw the arc that he threw it at. When it hit the ground short of the target, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a little bit more oomph. I barely overshot the target, and Ryan's, since it was in grass, and they just kind of had like a roped out area that needed to go into, his hit short, but then rolled in. So, we were able to gather 1 point from that. Uh, so yeah, definitely. I'm not doing a whole lot for the team on this stage, apparently. After that, you end up shooting your own guns, and we did a little bit better. We were a little confused from the stage brief about how many rounds we were getting to engage with. But the RO, he called stop at a certain time, even with that confusion. So it was a fun stage. It was just a lot going on. And the brief was a little crazy because we had multiple ROs trying to brief us at the same time. One's trying to brief us on the gun, 2 of the stage guns, and what we're doing with ours and all that. And there's another one trying to brief us on the machine gun. And so there was just a lot going on. It was super fun though. So
Yeah,
I
so
got to shoot a belt fed. I can't complain about that really.
yeah. So when you got your gun, there was 2 throoms up front, like 5 yards, and you shot those, and then you re-engaged all the targets that you had already shot, including the last. The way, and I don't think we dropped a lot, so it wasn't a big deal, but you were supposed to only get 2 shots at each one. The thing to keep in mind with this match, and we even forget it while we're doing it, while we're racing around. I mean, you don't want to take too long on anything in timeout, but there's no points for like that. We had 6 minutes to do that. If you burnt through that whole thing, missed a bunch of targets, and got done in a minute, you don't get any extra points for getting done in a minute. Whereas if you finish that last shot at 5 minutes and 59 seconds, but you hit every one of them, that's your max point. So this match, why there's always the speed aspect of it, and having part times on everything, even like 6 minutes sounds like a lot, but every time someone gets done shooting, you got to go back and put a mortar in, or you got to go do this, you got to go do that. The 6 minutes goes really, really quick. And people are all these, I don't think we've mentioned this yet. The match director doubles every stage. So anything that you're doing, there's another team shooting next to you, shooting a different set of targets, but set up in either mirrored or the same exact fashion. So it's easy to get rushed there, but you want to make sure, like Mike said with the mad dash, you just got to get your points. I mean, if you burnt through all those laps with your own gun and you missed everything, you weren't getting any points. So you might as well, take your time, get the 2 throoms, get the 2 at 100, 150 yards, get the 2 at 200 yards, really, really do your due diligence on those.
Yep. And I would say that, Ryan and I have talked, and probably next one that we do, we're gonna essentially, hit our stopwatch, trip at least on one of us a stopwatch at the beginning of the stage, so we can kind of self-monitor our own time usage. Because we definitely ended with way more time than we should have. Not to say that we didn't respect the targets, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean there was
we booked it like it was a traditional stage.
yeah, because there were shots that I made that in retrospect I thought, man, if I would have known how much time I had, or if I would have thought to take more time, even though I hit him, I still could have respected him a little bit more and maybe slowed down. So the next stage is Overwatch. This was easily our worst stage of the match. This is the blind target stage. We did it first thing in the day. I Last time we did this late in the day in the winter one, and the lighting kind of screwed us. Now we did it first part of the day. I wouldn't say the lighting screwed us, but it didn't help. And being early on the stage meant that a lot of the foliage and stuff around the target hadn't been shot through yet. Um, Also didn't help, but there's a couple reasons we didn't do well at this. So the way the stage worked, three teams could shoot it at the same time. You had an A position, which was one color, a B position, which was another color and area, and a C that was a third color and area. On the start, you ran around a building to your area, A, B, or C. We were in B to start off. That was like a big gravel pile. They had some lateral limits out there of that color target, or the color you were doing. And then anywhere between that, from in front of you all the way up to the top of the draw that we were shooting in, could have a target hidden in it. Some of them were close, some of them were further away. And there was three of them, like one kind of bigger one and then two smaller ones. And it was very difficult. You had 8 minutes, and they broke that up between each stage, whatever that breaks up to. And we spent the whole first position looking for targets in there and not seeing a thing. Mike saw one that he thought may have been one, but really couldn't positively ID it. I thought I saw one, and I actually brought, so this is something I thought after the last one, I brought a really bright laser pointer pen, and I was even like I led Mike out to the area and said, hey, can you see one here? Neither of us could really see it. Turned out the RO said, yeah, we were kind of right on it, but we never, like, there was times where I think I would see it with binos or a scope, but it wasn't obvious enough that I felt comfortable shooting at it, not just shooting into random woods. Second position, so they stop you, you empty out, kind of reset. They tell you go, you run to the next position. And that next position, we start looking, we do our things. I'm scanning with my eyes first, then I'm scanning with binos. Mike found one. Yeah, if you found it, you shot it 3 times per person. So he shot it 3 times. I was watching for sparks and stuff, but it was kind of behind, like Mike was shooting away some of the brush to hit it. So really couldn't see it. So here, hand Mike the laser. Mike lasers the target. Okay, now get through my scope. Now I see it, boom, boom, boom. Hit 3 times there. And then again, I'm looking. I ended up finding one. As soon as the binos went down, just couldn't find it again. Tried scope, tried getting Mike in it. It was just too. Went back up looking for it, found a second one that we hadn't shot yet. But again, as soon as the binos come down and I start scanning with my eyes, there was not enough in the binos for me to, I guess, kind of get a lock on it. So a little frustrating. Again, time goes up. They yell or beep, you run to the next one. And that last position, Mike found another target. We both shot it. And that was it. That was it. That was all we could find. That last position, I don't think I saw any more up there. Disappointing. I've been working on those skills. I know Mike's usually pretty good at them. I mean, this was just a hillside full of trees, and it was a very challenging stage, very fun. We're sharing this and not complaining about it because it's a skill I really want to get better at. But it is certainly discouraging to start your day like that. If Me and Mike are pretty good about, we've shot enough that we know like one bad stage is not the end of the world. So throw that out of your head, go on to the next thing. And that's what we ended up doing. We really didn't affect any of our shooting the rest of the day. But I mean, when we looked at the final scores, I don't think we said yet, we came in second this weekend. So, which is pretty awesome. But when we looked at the final scores, the points that we missed out, the amount of points the first place team beat us on was basically what we missed. They got on this that we didn't. So we could have picked points up elsewhere in the day. They could have, but that really, this stage really hurt us. If you add all the other stages together, I think we got one over them. They got a couple other, but things were really tight except for this stage. So Mike, you want to kind of share?
Yep. So normally I do a little bit better on these. This was a really challenging one because, as he said, it was morning. And so everything on the shady side, we were on the west side of the hill. So morning sun's in the east. So everything's kind of got that, 8:30 a.m. in the shady side of the hill, kind of that like flat gray green. Any of you that's grown up in the woods, especially here in like the Midwest and the Northeast, where you've got a lot of like the maples and oaks and have been out there in the summer in those earlier hours, kind of understand that you just kind of end up with a lot of green with like a little bit of gray in it and not a lot of depth. Not ideal for searching for targets. Um, when we got in our first position, we were on a gravel pile, and they had mentioned in the stage brief lateral limits, and so I was like, so what are our lateral limits? And there was pink tape to the right of me, pink tape to the left of me where Ryan was at, and the RO said they're marked on the ground next to you. I'm like, okay, so uh, unfortunately, Ryan and I searched the entire area, not understanding that there was things downrange that corresponded to each. So that's a big chunk of probably why we didn't find things. The target that I did pick up on pretty quickly right away was there was kind of like this grassy area, and so, it's like this and then goes up into the woods. And in this grassy area, there's some dirt, that kind of like a dirt skid, and then what looked like a rock. Like sometimes, like when a rock gets kicked up and from erosion or something. And, part of me was like, man, I wonder if that's a target. But it was on the ground. So it was mud color from apparently probably RO day, maybe when they shot it. Um, and to me, I'm like, that could be a rock, that could be a target. I'm not shooting at something that definitely is sitting in an angle where a round could skip if I don't know exactly what it is. So I did not do a recon by fire. Later, talking to the MD, he's like, that pretty much everything over on that area that we do these kind of stages, you can do some recon by fire. So, but without me having PID, I didn't feel like I could shoot at it. Ryan and I briefly kind of picked up another potential one. But again, we couldn't see through the barrier brush in front of it. They probably wouldn't have been there later in the day to really define it as yes, that's a target and get PID. Once we moved to the second position, that's when the lateral limits was cleared up by the RO that was doing that position. And so we didn't have to search as much of an area. The target that I did find definitely was behind some greenery that probably would be shot away. And also, you got to remember, like some of these targets, they haven't been shot that day. There's no fresh bullet splash there that's helping you key in on a flat, plate color. Got to get in front of the camera with round impact silver on top of it. So uh, again, while we found a target, it definitely wasn't hot for us. That third position, the laser pointer definitely came in clutch. And that target, as soon as I splashed my 3 rounds on it, I saw leaves from around it in that area just start going. I'm like, yeah, by the end of the day, that target's going to have a halo of greenery or gone around it. It's luck of the draw at these matches. As he said, we got the blind stage, end of the day in the shade, and during the winter, which made steel really hard to find. Um, and then, early morning, we caught it when it was really hard to find. But that stage is built intentionally to be difficult. And so it's easy to come off like we're grousing about it and upset. You always want to do better, but these are some very interesting environmental factors. And the Whiskey Hotel is a very practical match philosophy. Their classes are practical, um, practical shooting. Even on their webpage, they got the home of the Minuteman. And so it's that idea of, whether you're hunting or you're shooting a match, you're going to practice skills that are, you're not always going to come out shining and looking like the shooting superstar. Finding hidden steel in the woods translates into finding hidden deer come deer gun season in Ohio, West Virginia, Indiana, Kentucky, where they just blend in. And so you're hunting a silhouette that's broken up by the brush. Well, same thing with these targets. You're hunting a silhouette that's broken up by the brush. There's things in front, things behind. So frustrating at times, but still a very good stage. I don't want to see it removed from the match.
No,
I think that it belongs there.
it's good to have things every so often that you really just don't do good at and that you need to learn and practice. And that was certainly these are certainly becoming the case for us in this match. So kind of is what it is. The laser, I was actually trying to call in an A10 strike on it, just the general area, because I figured a good strafing run would take care of most of them, or maybe if they could drop like a cluster bomb on the area. But the A10s were not in the inbound in time, so you'll have that sometime with those big jobs. So Mike, talk about what the flip. This we're going on. This is the struggle bus part. This had a little confusion early on in the day. It kind of got cleared up, but we did not do as well at this as we probably would have if we would have done it later in the day. But you can explain it. We still had a fairly good. Actually, looking at it, we still had a fairly high score, but we definitely would have gained more if things would have been a little different.
Yeah, so what the flip was an interesting stage. We generally like these kind of stages because they require some teamwork and communication. And so it was set up that at the beginning, you would end up needing to run back and flip a card. And the card is going to tell you a task that you're supposed to do, an engagement order that you're supposed to do for your targets. And uh, then you would do whatever task was required, engage the targets that were required. And they gave you, I think it was like 300 to 500 yards. So you had an idea of the area you'd be working in for your holds and where the targets would be. And the targets were color coded for a left and right team. So you're running this at the same time as another team. And the cards were uh, fairly decently written. Um, and like some of the activities was like putting a tourniquet on, things like that. The struggle for us was when it came to the shooting. Um, it was set up where you had to have multiple impacts on the target per shooter. So there was things that it's like, uh, shooter A impacts target 4 times before they can advance to the second target. And then shooter B also needs to impact that target. But you're supposed to be shooting at the same time. So it got really confusing for the shooters and the ROs because what you would run into is I'm shooting at a target at the same time that Ryan's shooting at a target. And Ryan and I generally can call our own impacts fairly well on generous targets. Our recoil control is good enough that a lot of times we can watch splash and the target move. But you can't advance until the RO says you can. So he's calling hits, and then you're like, okay, does that count as my hits? Can I go ahead and move and start engaging the next target while Ryan, or did Ryan clear that target before me and he can switch to the next one? Then the RO's got to spot impacts for two shooters on two different targets. It was a lot. As much as I enjoy the aspect of shooters being able to engage the same target multiple times on demand, because that's a very practical skill, from controlling the chaos and giving competitive equity in consistent hit calling, that was a difficult stage. They
Yeah,
ended up, after we were in the early group of shooters that went through, and there was a change to the stage, and a couple of the early teams had gone through before were given a reshoot. Ryan and I briefly talked about it, and then we ended up going and helping with something later on and didn't take advantage of it. Um, After discussion and hindsight, if we would have took that reshoot, we probably could have gained some ground. But at the same time, reshoots can go the other way as well.
yeah, I
So
don't.
we ended up with kind of a mid pack to upper mid pack score. And with everything going on that day and everything going on in that stage, really can't complain. Upper mid pack is definitely better than going in and doing a reshoot and tanking it. So but
Yep.
there's lessons learned for everyone. MDs take lessons from matches, ROs take lessons from matches, shooters take lessons from matches, and I think a lot of people walked away with good lessons from this stage. It was fun. We generally like those type things where you're flipping cards or you're taking turns doing CPR and passing information on to your buddy while he's shooting and vice versa. And we normally not only enjoy them but excel. This one, not as much as we normally do, but upper mid pack was still, a good place to be.
Yeah, what we didn't say is that the stage brief, all it said about the targets was they were from 300 out to 500. 500 is definitely a poke with a 5.56 gun, no matter what barrel length. I mean, it's doable, but it's certainly not a give me shot. The other thing that kind of added chaos was the targets as they got out there had flashers past the 200. So if you hit it, it flashes, then it flashes again. Well, if someone's impacting it about the same time, or while that's giving another flash, it can sometimes be hard for the RO to know that it's the second hit and it's not just flashing at the same time. So again, we lost some points. In retrospect, when you looked at the final scores, we could have reshot it, and I don't know that we would have been able to gain enough points to be in first place. So it kind of doesn't matter. We just take some learning lessons from that and move on. So last stage of the day, this was actually our best stage, and this is kind of a whiskey hotel specialty, I think. Maybe Mike will agree, but this is their moving target stage. They always have either a you are moving and shooting targets. They've done that, or you're stationary and the targets are moving, and the targets are moving. In this case, the directions were that there were shoot targets. So if someone had a gun, that was a shoot target. They did not have a gun, that is not someone that needs shot. Be conscious of your foreground and your background when you're shooting, and just stand in these boxes and shoot things as they need shot. You had one 30-round mag in this, and they had three different mover targets. So two of them that you needed to shoot, one of them that should not have been shot, and then a couple that flipped up, that like a real close one that needed shot, and some different ones. So, and these were happening sometimes at the same time. The strategy me and Mike kind of did was, when anything was moving, we were calling out shoot or no shoot, just so there's no guessing, you know. So shoot or gun or whatever. Like I missed one. I saw it. I was shooting something up to the right and it started coming from the left. Well, by the time I saw it and realized that it was a target, it kind of hid behind things that I shouldn't shoot. So I wasn't able to get any points on that. But then Mike was able to hit it, and then when it came back, I mean, you kind of do what you can to make up what your partner's missing. Like one of them popped up. It was a no shoot. It came out and it blocked a lot of the shooting part, especially on Mike's side for a while. So you really had to be conscious of, like you said, the what's in front of you, and not just shoot because something's moving, because you could shoot right across. Um, I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but not Mad Dash isn't the only thing. Any paper target in this match is a scored target. So it's IDPA paper. So all these targets had a shirt on them, like a t-shirt covering the zone, and some kind of gun. So you can't just blaze away anywhere. You also have to try to score A's. We had like 40 points on this. We shot it really clean. I was really happy with the amount of A's that we had. The front target, one of us shot a little bit low, didn't hold enough height over bore. So we had a bunch of A's and a couple C's right there. The furthest target that was mover, that was probably the worst, but like some of the others that would pop up, especially the ones that just popped up and stayed there, I mean, it was almost nothing but A hits on those. So very, very happy to how well we did on that one, and really enjoyed the complexity of it and the amount of, like, just because something pops up, you can't shoot it. You really got to think and make sure that you know what's going on. Mike, what do you got to add about that one?
I feel like, yes, a team could shoot that without calling things to one another, but I really think that the best teams were probably communicating, because there was times where things would start on my side and Ryan might not be able to see them, and I could go ahead and call to him and let him know that once it came into his view, it was a go to engage. And Whiskey Hotel's movers are fantastic. It's normally a combination of some electronic movers, some manually actuated stuff that they set up and run really well, very consistent, and the exposures I think are very fair. I like that the targets are moving in and out of cover left and right, and there was also no shoots behind. It was a shooting experience that not very many people actually get, and that's one of the reasons I love it. Is on the civilian side, there's some LE training centers and stuff that offer that type of stuff, but we don't normally get that. Getting in a match, I was very happy with Ryan and I's accuracy, especially with the covered shirts, to remember about where we want to be holding. Even the far target, what we saw were even the C's were very close to the A zone. I mean, I would say within an inch or two. So you got to think, by the time you actually bring up, start tracking the target, try to come on to it, and then holding where you think the A is going to be, and then you decide to break the shot. Everything in my understanding, that's really common. And the fact that we were close to the A zone, um, gave me definitely a boost of confidence that we were doing a pretty good job with our experience level. There was no shoots that popped up that had stuff in their hands, but they weren't guns, and yeah, can't complain. Love that stage. I really enjoyed it. The RO Chevy Hood, from Hood's handgun training and stuff. He did a great job setting that up, and I enjoyed his movers that he had his combat pistol match, and I enjoyed his movers setup that he was running there. So another great great match from the shooting side. Good lessons learned at almost every stage.
Absolutely. So that's the last of the shooting stages. We'll kind of go through the rucks. There's 4 different rucks. Each of them, well, 3 of the rucks, they generally stay around a mile there and back. So you've got your gun, you've got your ruck, you should have all your gear, magazines, and you have 15 minutes to get full points to go get the ruck. This year Jimmy had he's kind of done a little bit of this in the past, but he had some kind of side things like a field with a bunch of objects you had to try to see, find and then write down. There was 10 of those. You get a point for each one. Um, there was uh what else? Range estimation, stuff like that. So very fun. The one that I think everyone probably really liked, and I know it was my favorite, it was a lot shorter of a distance, but you got 25 minutes for this one. But they had two dual Ranger bridges. So if you're not familiar, Ranger Bridge is basically just a tight rope, like a climbing rope spread between two trees. In this case, it was over top of a creek, both sets of them. And they actually had it doubled. So they had two, ran further down two, and then once you crossed, you came up the road and you crossed another one. They just had two, so two teams could run at the same time. This year, the kind of extra challenge, besides having a second Ranger Bridge, was that they had a backboard, and you had to get all your gear, guns, ruck, yourself, across both those Ranger Bridges. We had a pretty quick time on this. The thing I think there's a couple key things that really helped here. One was planning, looking at what you had, making a plan. Two was when it was time to do the plan, we didn't rush through it. We were trying to move quickly. We were talking, we were communicating, but we made sure, like, when it was, we're attaching our rucks to it. We're making sure we're taking the time that those rucks are attached well. They're not moving around. We don't want weight shifting around. We actually did two straps, like one on the front, one on the back. The front had a roller that they gave you, like a pulley, and then the back one was just a regular carabiner. But made sure that those were about the same height, made sure they were sturdy, they weren't going to come off. And then it was just from that point, it's executing. Hustle down there, be quick. Get things on there. Mike went first. He had a rope tied onto a piece of paracord, so he could actually get all the way across before the paracord stretched across. So like he went all the way across. I actually grabbed the paracord or the thing and kind of chucked it as far as I could across. He pulled it across. I got on, went across. We took everything off, hustled up. Same thing at the next one. So this is one of those, to be successful at this, it's teamwork, it's making a plan, it's working as a team, and it's just taking the time to do things correctly. If you don't have them on there real quick, you're halfway across and things start falling off and your gear's falling in the water and all that. I mean, if you touch the water, it was a 5 point penalty or something like that, 5-10 point penalty or something like that. So do things right. Don't half-ass it. Just do what you need to do, and however long that takes is how long it takes. Mike, what do you got here? I know I will say fitness did not hurt here. If you had good upper body strength, that was important. I actually, when I got to the end of the last one, my feet were, I had like a piece of webbing with a carabiner. There's no way my feet were touching the ground. I had to lift myself with one hand and unclip the carabiner with the other and then let myself down. So don't skip your pull-ups. Don't skip your dips, any of that stuff. Mike, your thoughts?
So it's ground is lava for adults. Um, I really enjoy that one. Ryan and I, we set up a game plan. We executed really well. I took part of setting the backboard up while he took securing the rucks and did a pretty good job with that. We hightailed it pretty quickly to jump on that Ranger bridge. I was looking at this was the round climbing rope, and normally like the flat strap that they sometimes use, like the slackline strap, it's easier to stay on top of. And I like to stay on top and use my leg, but just the amount of tension and the fact that they had kind of two ropes side by side, I wasn't sure how that was going to work. So I went ahead and just used a daisy chain and a carabiner through my belt and snapped on so I could just hang. Now, normally I won't just hang. I'll go ahead and wrap my feet around to help orient my torso so I can more efficiently reach up and pull myself across. So I pulled across, started pulling. Ryan, gave the backboard a good shove and then came across. I was able to get one side of the backboard off, the strap, and then about that time he got there, we worked as a team to get it off, and then carried it up the hill, got positioned on it to be able to run down the road, and we were feeling the burn, but we were moving pretty good. We hit that second bridge and executed the plan of me jumping on, and once we got the backboard set up, and then I shimmied across real quick. Ryan, he wasn't going to wait around, so as soon as he had room, he jumped on as well after kind of pushing the board as far as he could. Now, when you came to the termination of the second one, getting off was a challenge. I had to do the same thing Ryan did, where I actually, pulled up with my feet, kind of did the inverse plank, so to speak, to get where I could unclip myself, drop, and then instead of taking the time to hand over hand the leash to pull the board, he was wanting to come and he didn't want to wait for me. So I just took off running and just pulled the backboard right across, then came back to do the quick unhook to try to get it out of his way, and kind of let him know about the getting off situation. And he got off really quick, adapted really quickly. That's one of the things I love about being a partner with Ryan is he adapts and overcomes very well. So we jumped off, grabbed that backboard, hoofed it into the finish, almost ran someone over, and he netted a fantastic time. So
which was
very
for
very
which.
happy with our performance there.
Yep, and there was no extra points for doing it fast. Someone else had just said this team's XYZ's got the fastest time, and we were going to try to do it faster than them. And I guess someone after us did it. I think we were around 19 minutes. I think someone did it in 16 minutes, which is I think doable. There's a couple areas we probably could have shaved some time, but if you're more familiar with ropes, I guarantee you probably could do it quicker like that. But that's an impressive time. They really put the work in to get 16 minutes. So yeah, those are always fun.
Yeah, my guess is it probably came down. I was going to say my guess is it probably came down to how much time they spent securing the load, because our actual time hooking on and transitioning was probably not where we lost the 2 minutes. Um,
Yeah, I agree. And I think we've mentioned this before.
but hey, we know for next time.
Yep. I think we've mentioned this before. I'll say this is a secret weapon. If you got a ruck that you're carrying in a match, and you have to have weight anyways. Um, a nylon webbing. I think usually they call them like a daisy chain. Just a decently thick piece of nylon. It's got some little loops sewed in it. To me, that's a secret weapon. That and a couple carabiners. You can hook it onto you if you got to do low crawls. You can drag your bag behind you, attached to that. If you need, you can hook your bag to something. Like this case, I wrapped it around my waist and had my carabiner up there. And like Mike said, I got my legs over there. I'm pulling with my arms, but I also got a gun on me, and I don't worry about falling. Like if I let go, I'm going to fall. Yep, Mike's got it there. Mike carries a couple of them. I'm going to be carrying a couple of them going forward as well, because you need weight anyway. So they don't really weigh a terrible amount, but add 2 or 3 pounds of carabiners and daisy chains to your ruck. They have come in handy more times than I can say in ruck matches. So absolutely get. I mean, I've got a couple carabiners that are not climbing rated. Like they do lock, but they're definitely not like body weight carabiners. But I've also got a couple larger carabiners that will hold body weight. So I think a good mix of those. Not everything needs to hold 4,000 pounds, but just for securing rucks, a little one's fine. Securing a body, Mike's not gonna do a little ruck. He's gonna use that big boy. So
Yeah, and I'm gonna say be conscious of there's the auto lock style that automatically the drum is spring loaded and locks the carabiner, and then there's the kind that are threaded. In hindsight, the threaded ones annoy me. They always seem to get locked on me, and then I'm dealing with trying to unspin this thing. I'd rather, if it's gonna have a lock, I'd rather it just have that quarter rotation. Um,
and when you
Honestly, for a lot of what we're doing, no lock is super necessary.
Yeah, but when you clip in to have that auto lock is a little bit of extra security that you're not
Mhm.
getting with because you're not going to take the time to screw one on. So,
Yep. And then the other thing is these are a little bit harder to find. These are something you see more in like the industrial safety, but the ladder ones, like that you see for hooking on the ladders or hooking on to like industrial lifts, like scissor lifts and stuff. These are fantastic because it's a lot easier to get these around whatever the heck you're going to see. Because look at the gap there. And I'm not super concerned about trying to get this into words and focus. Look at the gap. It's way easier to get this around maybe a big toe strap if that's what the slack line is. And then, even though it's a big gap, since it's an auto lock, I'm not super concerned about it coming undone. And this is my go-to. I've actually got some more of these online in a cart waiting on me to spring for them because these hurt a little bit more because they're actually uh, rated for load and a little bit bigger, more expensive item. But I would say at least one of these latter is worth having. If you can spring for two of them, you need the weight for the ruck division, so it doesn't hurt. Maybe just your wallet for one order, but for what we do, they'll last a lifetime. My kids are going to be using these, so
yep. So that's the team ruck match. I mean, we really tried to burn through this. We've got some other episodes that really give you a good idea on this match as well. So feel free to go back and watch those. Three other ones, one, two summers and one winter. Um, Loved it. Like I said, we got second. We were happy, pleasantly surprised with a couple of how the stages went that we were as high, but looking at the scores, we shot fairly well that day. So the winners, they are the same ones from the summer last year. We're coming for them. We're gonna work on it. We're gonna keep improving, and hopefully next summer we can take them down and get back to that first place position again. So Mike, what are your closing thoughts on this?
another fantastic event by the Whiskey Hotel crew. You can tell they put a lot of effort into these matches. They really care about the feedback. Um, Everything that we've ever given them feedback wise, there seems to be a correction in their next event. It's a fantastic event because it's a good gut check for your physical preparedness, your ability to communicate and work with maybe your closest teammate. You see father son, father daughter teams. You see husband wife teams out there, best friends, and you get to go and do something and challenge and support the your teammate through the event, and it's just a really positive experience. I'm really glad that we've been able to do these, and they're definitely high on our list of ones that we recommend. And with that said, not only the matches, but our experience with the Whiskey Hotel classes have been really good as well. And highly recommend those for a practical accuracy, practical rifleman type class. So that's kind of my closing thoughts. Really enjoyed it.
Yep, agreed. And I don't the things that you see in their class, the skills that they teach you are the same things that are in this match. So like Mike said, if you take their class, it's a good jump start to doing well at this match. I think that's because the skills they teach there they think are important and they put them in a match, so it's not like a sales pitch for their class. Even if you don't shoot this match, like this match doesn't sound like it's for you, maybe the rucking doesn't, the skills, I mean, I've been shooting rifle a long time and still took a ton away from DMR1. I got an episode on that. Just me. We're going to do an episode with Mike here on DMR2 soon. So hopefully we've got all the bugs worked out of recording. Again, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up, comment, let us know what you think, ask questions. We'd like to answer any questions you guys have out there. So thanks for watching, and see you out in the range.